Yeah, I don't want to go to jail for anything. I'm much too, weak.
And you're pretty. You are listening to the Stand Up Dads podcast.
This is hecka boring.
Yeah, it is.
Let's try again.
I was going to do a cold start and that fucked me up.
Because we're talking about, what's the honorable way of making jokes?
Damian's honorable, and if they can't defend themselves, he won't make the joke.
Which is
true.
smart.
Well, it's decent. And there's got to, that's my niche market.
There's no room for decency in this world.
That's why I'm making it my niche. That and puns,
And that's why I chose to come back. This is Stand Up Dads. This is Rob and Mike, and we have special guest DAMIAN HARMONY with us today.
Hello.
And if you remember that name, he was here with us on the autism episode, which actually got a lot of good feedback on.
Oh, cool. So, it's the episode with autism, by the way. Again, you want to put the person first.
The episode with autism.
There you go.
About autism.
Yeah.
And I wasn't on it. That's probably what also made it one that get downloaded more.
It was the one episode that didn't bring up Harry Potter.
Yeah. And you brought it up this time.
Yeah.
It's starting to happen.
Can you get a timestamp?
It's starting to happen.
Yes. I can edit that out. We're starting off the year, well, not on a down note, talking about miscarriages and kind of family planning. Where
how is that not a down note?
It is a down note.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
kind of a down note.
If it's not a down note, you're a really messed up person. If it's not a down note, oh, thank God. That's.
It's not a down note when you get to be I think when you get to be 90 or 100 and you're just it doesn't matter. It's just life.
Yeah.
Because people are
there is that.
But prior to that,
you're sad.
I'd say it's a downer. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on the upside, our bad dad is a funny one.
Yeah.
Because for a while, we were getting really bad where dad kills infant,
really?
kills, and it was just horrible.
Oh,
shit.
Yeah. It just makes me it's too much.
We just got done laughing at dick jokes, and now. And then, so we'll talk to you guys next week.
No, they end it all. Oh.
We were talking about what it's like to plan for having a kid, and then suddenly it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
We all, I think, have known people that have had miscarriages or couples that are dealing with it.
We went through it. Yeah, we went through it, and it sucks because I don't know. It was early on both times, but it's one of those things where we were totally
you were down for having a kid.
Yeah, and I would have had a kid in my 20s on both of those as
really?
opposed to 30s. Yeah, and it would have been completely different. And it's just one of those things you're so excited you're not thinking in terms of, you're supposed to wait past the 3 or 4 months so that, you know. So we're already excited and telling everybody and planning and buying stuff. And
so you already had a nursery set up?
Well, starting to
looking
get
at
stuff,
things, maybe
and
getting
that's the worst.
Yeah.
To then get rid of the stuff, and feel don't want to try again, and it's kind of what led us to think that we couldn't have kids after the second time.
Because after two, you start to see a pattern.
Yeah,
and also the first time you're okay, that's awful, but
sure.
Freak things happen, and honestly, it's a 4 in 10 chance, in some places. So then you're okay, well, let's try again. But the second time, you're oh, what the hell?
Yeah. And then the doctors the first time they do say well, sometimes it's it's like the body, you know, it wasn't right, but it's prepping itself.
Right.
But then you said, then the second time's what the know, that's now it's not okay.
I mean, that's got to be tough on the relationship.
Oof.
Yeah.
What did you do wrong? I mean, does that ever cross through your head?
It didn't. It was just pure sadness.
Yeah.
It was just sadness. Yeah, I didn't think anything of whose fault it was or not. It was a lot of being just angry at God or whatnot. Just why?
Sure.
It just sucks.
Were you guys engaging, if I may ask, in any kind of risky behaviors either?
No.
Right.
So
there's really nothing to lay the blame on.
Yeah, it's not you could say oh, we shouldn't have kept bicycling or we weren't doing anything. Yeah,
heroin's a bad idea.
Oh yeah,
the first 3 months.
Nothing like that. Yeah.
Middle 3, it's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. So, that's pain management.
Right.
Yeah.
But you got to tetr right off. It's fine.
Yeah, and the thing is, of course, and rightfully so, the woman gets a lot of the sympathy and attention, but the guy, I can imagine, would still be pretty fucked up. And no one really thinks about him, I would think. I mean...
Yeah, I can't speak directly to it, but I've known people where the guy didn't know where to put those feelings.
Sure.
Because, again, it's her body.
Yep.
There's so much wrapped up in it, and 90% her carrying the load on that.
Of course.
You know? And then, so there's kind of no vocabulary for it for the men.
Yeah.
No. I mean, a friend of mine I've known since I was 18. You know, they went through a series. God, I lost count of the number of miscarriages they had. Yeah. And it was funny because I was, you know, I mean, after a point, we kind of stopped sending condolences or anything because we were like, I don't think they want to see this shit anymore, you know.
Yeah.
But I also remember feeling like shit because I'm like, well, I never really talked to him about it or gave him the opportunity. I just figure I'm a big believer of treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, my answer to most things is leave me the fuck alone. So I assume people want to be left the fuck alone.
Right. Right.
So
that's the downside to the golden rule.
Exactly.
Is like if you're a hermit or a malcontent or a lunatic who runs around beating people to death while wearing Bugs Bunny costumes, like it just doesn't work well, you know. Whereas if you go to the Confucian one, if don't do to people what you don't want done to you, it's much more chill.
This is true.
So, yeah.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, it is true. It's like, well, yes, I want someone to try to kill me while I try to kill them.
Right. You know, it's just, you know, I'm going to exhibit my kink onto everyone, you know, and it's like, oh, that's, I mean, you are following the golden rule, but yeah.
I want a bunny costume.
Yeah. Well, I went to SacCon for the first time the other day, and that was people walking around and showing their kink to everyone. Like, I didn't have Olivia, and I like the Comic Cons around here, the regular Comic Cons. I've never been to the Sac one, so I was like the anime one. Yeah. So I was like, well, I wanted to check it out and just see, like, it will be all right for her. And
how old is she?
She's 9.
Oh,
so,
it's perfect.
You know, I looked at it and I was like, the way they were dressed up, and I'm kind of like on the fence of it. But I like the art and stuff. I could see her liking that.
Art.
But she's, well, no, I do.
I just remember your
it's
head
so much
being on a
anime.
Swivel at the San Jose Con we went to.
Oh, yeah, that San Jose Con was
that the furry con? Or?
No, that one wasn't
the
different
furry
one. Yeah.
It was
that's also in San Jose, though.
The furry con?
Yeah, there's a huge one. I know because the volleyball team for my school has a tournament down in San Jose every year. And for the first couple years, they kept ending up at the same hotel as the furry con. And then they started booking somewhere else. Like,
probably a good idea.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's a barrier method, you know. So it's fine.
Well, I saw something there I hadn't seen before, which is rare. You know how they have the LARPers, right? The live action role players. Yeah. They had this other one, and I couldn't tell what they were. I don't know if they were called loppers or what, but they were guys that were out there pretending to battle.
Oh, boffers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's so fun.
It was hilarious. They were so serious.
Yeah.
And they had people lined up to do it, and what they have is they have these big like padded things,
Nerf swords?
and they try to attack each other.
Yeah, those things over there. Okay. Yeah,
but they were like fully padded.
I thought that was part of LARPing.
Yeah. No, it's an offshoot. So it used to be like my friends and I did it in a very low rent kind of way.
Sure.
They would get PVC pipe and foam rubber and duct tape, and we just wrap it all up, and they would shape and make dozens of weapons, and we called them mosh weapons. Like this is like before it happened.
They beat the hell out of each other.
Oh, they beat the shit out of each other.
Used to do them out of cardboard.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
you know,
there's some little kids. Kids were in there trying to play. And they were merciless to them.
Yeah,
I think that seems like fun.
Right in the face.
So
like,
what I can't deal with it is like with the LARPers, the guy that magic missile. I'm sorry, I just can't.
Like if he at least had a card that he would throw Gambit style.
No,
be like,
what he had
so you
was
could see
like
something go.
No, he had like a pouch with like they were like the those little poppet things you throw on the ground.
That's cool.
But I don't think they were
popping.
Yeah.
Oh, see, then yeah, and with Magic Missile, it automatically hits. So you need something that also always automatically hits.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think he was throwing like heavy cotton balls. I mean, it just looked. And of course he was the LARPiest of the LARPers.
Yeah, that's not fair.
I mean, I don't know. I think it would be hilarious and fun to do. So I'm not bagging on it.
Oh, I got friends who do LARPing. Like, it's not my, it's kind of my thing about my rejoinder to most things is, well, I like broccoli, and it's like, I don't like cauliflower as much as my brother does, but I like broccoli quite a bit. So I don't like LARPing personally, but hey, man, go for it. That's awesome.
The way it works is, to me, there's levels of nerddom. Yep. And everybody's got their own. And so the people who are LARPers are looking at us going, I'm like,
lightweights.
I'm like, those nerds. And then I'm like, ooh, they have some more comics over here. And like, look at that guy. Like,
right.
How dare you? This isn't nerdy.
Right.
Like, let me talk to you about it.
I'm normal. If you're into this more than me, you're crazy. And if you're into this less than me, then you're not big enough.
It's totally
it's
that.
Definitely a
It's so
hierarchy.
that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We can all agree that mimes are on the lowest rung. So.
right below podcasters.
Right. Who are just below puppeteers because of the new Dark Crystal. So.
Talking to
haven't seen
ourselves.
that.
And yeah. Has that come out already?
Yeah.
So the Dark Crystal series, yeah, it's out on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's amazing. Like, I'm going to spoil episode 7 for you all. There's a Skeksis living with a mystic.
Did they use the same animation, like the same
puppeteering?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's the Henson Company. But what they did, I was watching it with some friends and my kids, because my daughter's super into this.
Yeah.
They said, and now we're going to tell you of how things came to be. And I turned to my friends. I'm like, wouldn't it be hilarious if they did it as puppetry? And then they did it as puppetry.
Awesome.
So it was puppets doing puppets. And that was 3 weeks ago I saw that,
Whoa.
and I'm still geeking out over it. And it was so well done. It was shadow puppets and all kinds of, oh my God, it was amazing. So that's episode 7 of it. But yeah, it was good. But, anybody who's not into it as much, it's just lightweight. But anybody who's more into that than me, they're just
Now you're strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's totally that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that old Carlin bit where he would talk about anyone who drives faster than you is a maniac,
Yes.
and anyone who drives slower is a fucking idiot.
right. Or my stuff, but
Totally.
you have shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh fuck! How did we veer off into this from Miscarriage?
Because
Anyway,
it's really uncomfortable to talk
it
about miscarriages.
Really
Yeah.
is. I don't know
Yeah.
why we're doing this,
Especially as 3 guys. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
But again, it's the God to borrow from Betty Friedan. Like it's the pain that has no name.
Yeah.
Like she talked about being a woman in the 50s, and it was an issue that had no name, and of course she completely blocked out all the people of color and all the gay folk. But so she's doubly doing it. But like there's not that much talk about what a man suffers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, I don't want to take from what's, a very real and concerning thing that women are going through with this. Yeah. But at the same time, like if you had planned to be a dad and then you don't get to be, like that's a lot of feelings. Like this is going to sound weird and it's kind of tangential, but my grandma died earlier just last month. And I was driving down to say goodbye to her because they pulled the plug, and 3 hours to get down there. Right. And I'm preparing the whole time to say goodbye. My sister and I are in the car. We're preparing to say goodbye. We're sharing stories. We're kind of stealing our resolve. And we get there and they pulled the plug, and she's still doing all right. She's still living, and she was cognizant, and she was able to, and we had to leave like an hour later to get back up here to get our kids from school and stuff.
Oh.
And it's like, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but there's like this buildup of, I'm ready. Here we go. And then that gets diverted. Or that gets deferred, and then she died a couple days later. So, well, as expected, but everybody was like, "Oh my God, she's doing so well. Maybe she'll turn it around."
Yeah.
But it's that odd disappointment of expectation. Not like I was emotionally disappointed that Grandma didn't die.
Yeah.
But I had expected to say goodbye, and then I didn't get to.
Yeah. Well, my dad had his big one. I was really grateful that my cousin was there. She was a nurse, and we decided, because he was brain dead, but he was physically doing okay.
Right.
And, we had to make the decision because, and she pulled me aside and said, just know, this is not like TV.
Right.
He ain't
coming back.
Well, it's just when they pull the plug, it's not like he's not going to flatline right away. He could fight. He could look like he's struggling.
Right.
Be ready for that. And I'm so glad, because it was exactly like she said. But he didn't go a couple days. It was just like a half hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad she said that, because had she not, I'd be
like,
what's wrong? What's,
Right.
Yeah.
Someone give me a pillow.
Did we jump the gun?
Fucking something.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, I mean, there's, death is obviously one of those things, even if you're ready for it or whatever.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking matter.
No.
Yeah.
Unless, someone you wanted to go.
But even then, there's feelings that go with that. There are.
Sure.
You just deal with it in different ways.
This is true. But
I think, with the miscarriage, the thing was mostly like you also had to be there for, like, I had to be there for my ex, because she had it worse because she was going through the physical pain of it and the feeling. So, like, I mean, that does make it where it is, where you're kind of deferring it and then trying to, like, not really think about it. And I think that, but you can't get around that they're going through double.
So anything that helped you through that?
God, man.
I mean, it's been a while. So
It's been a while. I don't know. It's one of those things where people try to talk with you and they try to explain, and it's not the type of thing I think where a shared experience even helps. I think sometimes, it's just time. It really was just time.
That ends up being it. Yeah.
Because I know my mom had talked about it, having one, and
my mom had one.
Yeah, stuff like that. But it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't resonate as the same, because you're like dealing with, the selfish, your self-centered thing of like, well, but I this was right now, and
right.
Time. That's the only thing. Yeah.
I mean, there was an article I read that said like 1/4 of pregnant women go through miscarriage, which seemed really high.
Well, that's also takes into account fertilized embryo didn't implant.
Sure. Oh, okay.
So like for instance,
you think it'll be higher then?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what brings it up is
Sure.
because like if you're measuring your ovulation and you know exactly the hour you ovulated and stuff. So if you've got fertility problems, you tend to measure the ovulation and then you're like, okay, well now's the time. Let's get it going and da-da-da-da. And then you're testing more often and you can test positive and then you end up so there's false positives.
Got it.
But then you can also test positive and then suddenly you get your period and it's a heavy flow and it didn't implant, and that can be a 2-day miscarriage. That still counts. And especially if you have trouble with fertility, like that ends up being its own blow. It's like oh man, we got there and then we didn't, and it was literally 4 cells kind of thing, but it still counts, so there's probably plenty that do go unreported because people don't know.
Yeah. But Kim and I were having rough times with it. We never had, at least as far as we know, but she was really quick to go back to the doc and like, God damn, I got to jerk off in there again.
Oh God, that was an awful room.
But you know what killed me about that is like no one there has a sense of humor.
Because they're tired of it, man.
Yeah, every guy's. I mean, every open micer has a blowjob joke. Every guy going into the fertility clinic has a jerk off joke.
I remember the second time I went in, they gave me the same video, and I said, "Oh, I was glad I got this. I wanted to see how it turned out." And she just gave me the total deadpan, like, the room's over there. You're in room 2. Like,
you have half an hour.
That is actually a really good one. I mean, she should have given you like that's a clever play on it.
And I'll never get over the fact that in the magazines, because of all the smut they had a lowrider magazine in there. Someone gets off to a lowrider magazine. I mean, they have attractive women in there, but I'm going to need more than that.
Well, it depends. Different strokes for different folks.
So how long between miscarriage and you having Oli?
Let me think.
I got to work on my transition.
Probably like, God.
You missed a pun, so.
4.
Okay, what was the pun?
Probably different strokes for different folks.
Yes, and we'll discuss later that Damian runs the Capital Punishment Show at Luna's every month.
Yep. So anyway, you said 4 years?
Something like that. Yeah, we waited a long time between each one. We waited a long time. But then again, we also thought, that the doctors kind of lean towards like you probably can't, and
right.
Then,
just to minimize disappointment,
I guess. And then, and then with Olivia, then it was like, a miracle. And then we didn't want to mess with nothing.
Sure.
I don't know. I think I talked on the podcast before about this, but they were pushing because I was 37 and she was, my ex was she was 35. So she was already in the geriatric pregnancy. They call it.
They're within that age now where people worry.
So then they put all these things on us and they, one day we were in there and it was like when you're at a auto mechanic and they're like trying to upsell you. They're like, well, her head is too big for this week. We need to do this shot. And I'm like, well, what's this shot? Well, to determine if she's got Downs. I'm like, we don't care. And they're
that's
like,
the nuchal dye.
It was a giant needle, and they're like, well, but this is how we can tell. I'm like, well, we don't care. And I'm like, is there any possibility with that causing a miscarriage? And like, oh, it's like 0.00. And we're like, no. And they were like arguing with us, like, you need to do it. I'm like, why? If the whole point is just to tell me if she has it, and I'm telling you we don't care, we're going to keep her. So why? By the end of it, they got mad because I'm like, how do you know her head's too big anyway? And they're like, oh, because of the week that she's at. And I'm like, well, that's based on the date I gave you, which I pulled out of my ass. So can I give you another date? Would that change it? And they're like, yes. I go, well, then change the date. And they're like, we can't do that. I'm like, what? I go, you can't do it? Like you? And he's like, no, you can't change the date. I'm like, ridiculous, man. And I'm like, they must get, I mean, is that like pure profit? Like, do you sell 3 of them and you get like...
Well, I mean, it eliminates a lot of stuff, but that also brings up, what do you do if you do find there's something wrong? My wife was like 40 when we had him, and
that's also in that range totally of worry.
Yeah. And then she wanted another, and I'm like, we already gambled on this one, and he came out perfectly fine. I don't want to push my luck.
Yeah.
And not that I wouldn't love a kid with Downs or some other disability. It's just I know I'm not going to be around forever, and if I was independently wealthy and I could make sure that kid was taken care of, I would probably be a lot more open to it.
Yeah.
But I've seen, I remember we had a friend of the family who had a son with Downs, and the mom was like in her late 70s still taking care of this 40-year-old guy with Downs, and it was horrifying because he was violent. And, for the most part, he was great, but there were times where she would be, black and blue.
Right.
And it's like, oh, he got a little out of hand. And it's like, she's not going to be around forever. Who's going to look out for him? And they weren't wealthy. And it's just, if you have fuck you money, go ahead.
Right.
But if you don't, and then it's like, so what do you do? Do you abort based on that? Do you put it up for adoption? I mean, it's just, there's so many things.
Yeah, because then you get into what I'm going to use the word flaw for lack of a better term, or defect.
Sure.
What defects are abortable? What defects are havable? And that's going to be. I mean, I say I like broccoli. There's going to be all kinds of different people coming to different conclusions for all kinds of very valid reasons.
Yeah.
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 And then you get into genetic editing. Essentially you get into a level of eugenics.
Totally.
Which is very uncomfortable as an historian.
Yeah.
So, especially considering the first people on the lists, the first people that Hitler went after were the disabled.
Yeah.
I mean, he used very specific phrases. And
is that what eugenics means? What does eugenics means? Because I'm going to be
pretty much ethnic cleansing in a way.
Yeah, okay. It's even worse. Yeah, because eugenics is essentially based on the flawed science of social Darwinism.
Yeah.
And it's an American thing mostly. Like there were American scientists who got it from a few Russian scientists, but then they brought it to America and were like, it's essentially like pseudoscience that helps explain why white people are supreme. And like it's a step above phrenology, but only half a step above, the one where you feel people's bumps on their heads.
Okay.
And then the German scientists who were racists liked it a lot, and they brought it over to the National Socialist Party of Germany, and Hitler was like, oh, I like the cut of their jib. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of essentially breeding out the bad traits, and if someone is born with bad traits, then you eliminate them so that they're no longer in the gene pool. So it's what we do to breed dogs turned on to humans. The difference is dogs aren't sentient, so there's a lot more wiggle room with that. But you turn it on to humans, and it leads to ethnic cleansing, genocide. And the first people always targeted are the disabled, because there's this ableism that goes into it where they assume, oh, they're not going to live a full life because they're wheelchair bound, or they're not going to live a full life because they have diminished mental capacity, or and it leads to forced sterilization that lasted up until the 1990s on the East Coast.
That blows my mind.
Oh, it's insane.
I didn't even know that.
There's a great book called Choice and Coercion. I forgot the author, but it talks about the forced sterilization of black women specifically who were arrested for any number of crimes. But it's like, oh, clearly you're prone to criminology, therefore we're going to sterilize you against your will. I mean,
holy crap!
That's a great way to try to stall a movement.
Wow.
Is to terrorize the women, and that's very much what happened.
Wow.
So.
I had no idea about that.
I'm like, we need funny here. There is none.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know at what point what is okay to keep and what isn't, and I don't know. And like you said, with I like broccoli, everyone's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I knew we were just happy we were able to have one, so I didn't give a crap.
Exactly.
And I didn't want anybody telling me, like, it was weird to me even to be like, why are you good? Why do I want to find out if it's not going to matter, if that finding out could make me lose them,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was born deaf, and if they told me your kid's going to be deaf, I'd be like, fine.
Cool.
I wouldn't even think why, it'd be like, because I know it's a disability as far as you let it be, because there was nothing my dad couldn't do that he wanted to do except for sing.
Right.
And that's actually the only thing he said. That's the only thing I wish I could do. And it's like, oh, fuck, that fucks me up.
Yeah.
But So yeah, I mean, whereas someone else might think, oh, that would be a horrible defect.
Yeah, someone else might think it. Yeah, totally. Someone could think it's
or someone that was blind. You know, to me, I can't imagine. But at the same time, there are plenty of functional people with full, wonderful lives.
Exactly.
That are blind. So.
And the idea of a full life itself is a very subjective term. Like, you know, my son is on the spectrum. He has autism. I have no doubt that he's going to live his life to the fullest.
Exactly.
Now, his life to the fullest is very different than my life to the fullest. Yeah. It's very different than my daughter's life to the fullest. But his life will be lived all the way up to the hilt, you know, and that's wonderful. But if somebody else was to come in and go, well, I'm sorry, but he's not meeting these benchmarks. He's probably not going to get through this or this, but he's not going to get, you know, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, let's watch what he can do.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of, quote, normal people that don't live life anywhere near to the fullest.
Neurotypical people.
Thank you. I knew there was a word for it. But.
Well, yeah, and what's funny is when they say, where it's going to be to the fullest, it's so subjective where it's like, will they get to live a life where it's like, what, like me? I don't want my daughter to end up like in debt. And like, I would like her to be, because I said that with my ex one time where she's like, I want her to be a doctor. I'm like, I want her to like travel and do whatever she wants. Yeah. If she wants to do that, yes. If she doesn't, like, to me, it's like.
Oh, I mean, I hang out with a lot of stand-up comics. So very few of them are living their life to its fullest. You know?
Yeah.
It's part of what gets us on stage.
Yeah.
You know?
Bad decisions make good stories.
Right.
This is true. Yeah.
Everyone has their own definition of living to the fullest. There's something there, but I'm hitting a dead end in my head.
Oh, just in terms of like
living to the fullest.
What people would want to eliminate if they were to find out?
No, that and living to the fullest. You know, just there are plenty of people where it's like, I couldn't have done that, but I admire them that do, you know, the ones that do.
Yeah. There's professional wrestlers that live their life to the fullest. I'm like, that's amazing. And part of me envies that. But at the same time, I don't want to be on the road 5 days a week.
No, and you don't want to be crippled at 45.
Right.
So,
you know? So
that's
it's
the other
you know,
thing.
Yeah. So I don't want to miss Halloween. I don't want to miss birthdays.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. So again, you know, living life to the fullest. I mean, we were all, I think we were all at least partnered, if not married at some point.
Yeah.
And, you know, my idea of living life to the fullest was I knew I was going to be next to someone when I died. And also we were raising a family together. Yeah. Well, now I'm not doing that. And it's pretty unlikely that person will be next to me when I die. Yeah. So am I not living life to the fullest now? Or do I need to readjust, my expectations? Or do I need to go out, you know, do I need to rinse out that cup and then start filling it up again?
Or is it possibly more full because you're open to new things that weren't there before?
You know, my therapist keeps trying to tell me that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a very valid point. You know, it's one of those, like, how do you know the next thing coming down the road won't be better?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I agree with what you're saying about the choices, because there's a lot of times where I'll start to go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, I should be doing this or that, or I could be doing this more with my art or my career. But it's like, but no, what I'm choosing is like I teach online, so I can go and help like at my daughter's school. And I can pick her up, and I can be the art docent, and I can do all that stuff. And to me, like, that is where I want to be right now. That's your totally where I want to be. Yeah. You know, but it's totally easy to get caught up with. If people just start talking that way, then you're like, well, good. Well, then I guess I am a failure. And then you're like, what? No, I'm not. Yeah. Wait a minute. You know, like, this is what I want to do.
as I age, I'm finding that my idea of success ends up being much more about eliminating debt and having more free time, more than it has to do with any kind of ambition. It doesn't mean I'm not trying to build my program that I teach, or I'm not trying to build the show that I run, or that I'm not trying to grow my own podcast. But by and large, like, it has more to do with how much time do I have with my kids.
Yes. Yeah. How much time can you, because I want like every moment of it. And I know, even like we were talking about today, because I was trying to yell like goodbye, you know, when we were dropping off my daughter to come here, and Robert's like, come on, and I'm like,
dude, let me squeeze this.
I get half the time, you know, and I want all the time I can have, and every bit of that time to me is important, because I see, for some reason, I'm always aware of the time that's passing.
Yes.
And I have all the pictures up, so it reminds me every morning of like how fast it's gone, you know, and how quickly they change.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think I'm taking it for granted.
I want every moment of it.
It should be granted.
Yeah.
Well, but I should I shouldn't be taking it for granted, though.
Well, and the thing is, we all do, and we still like. I mean, I'm always like taking like inventory of how the day went, and did I do good that day, or did I? But for the most part, I think because we care is the only reason. Well, of course, it's different if we were just be like whatever,
I mean,
right?
Like
part of why I do this podcast is hopefully I become a better parent as a result of it.
It helps so much. He brings up all these articles, and I'm like, cool. That's how you can do it.
Right, yeah. Ooh, bag of tricks.
Yeah, it really helps. There's certain stuff. Yeah,
but
man.
like this morning, I picked up my kid. I'm like, fuck, when'd you get big? And he's not big, but you know, he for some reason is interested now in what it was like changing his diapers.
Okay.
I don't know, some story or something he saw on TV
hooked him.
Yeah. So it's like, and then he's like, did I ever pee in your face? I'm like, okay, I don't know where you got that from, but no, because I was better than that.
Right.
That's awesome.
I always love the videos you see where the guy just puts himself right in the line of fire. It's like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. No, you do the kid like 90
Sideways,
degrees from you.
exactly.
Yeah. That way it goes that way. I've still been shat on from a distance, but
he shit on my pants.
Nice.
Through his diaper because
my daughter did that to her uncle when we first, it was his first time meeting the family.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, hey man, blood in, blood out. Like shit in, shit out.
Somehow the way I was holding him, like the diaper moved over so his ass was open. So he shit on my pants.
Nice. Yeah. And the air probably did it. It was like, nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Time to go. Yeah.
And the nice part was I could use that same diaper again.
You just slide it back over.
Pretty much. Yeah. A little wipe here, and I had to change myself. But anyway, I don't know. Awesome. But then, like, on top of the miscarriage thing, which is awful in itself, but I mean, I can't even imagine planning for a pregnancy and then either stillbirth or they don't make it to, you know, 'cause my kid was in NICU for a week. And actually, I remember when he was delivered, they said, Dad, over here, and, you know, you want to cut the cord? And so you mean trim it? And I'm like, what? Well, you already cut it. It's like, yeah, do you want to trim the cord? I'm like, sure. And I did that. And then it was a C-section. So I remember there was all this commotion over there.
Right.
And then my kid starts turning blue.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and I know nothing about this stuff.
Sure.
And I don't worry until the person in charge worries.
Right.
So she looked calm and she's kind of rubbing him on the back and slapping his feet. Like, okay. And then I hear commotion. I can't stop this bleeding. So I look and there's my wife wide open.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, that's what she looks like from the inside. And then they're looking like panicked. And then I'm like, she probably wouldn't want me looking at this. And then I hear the nurse to my right go, hey, and she's calling for some help. And like for a split second, I'm thinking, I'm going to lose both of these fuckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they finally got him, and he was in a NICU for like 4 or 5 days, and
Okay.
everything turned out fine, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
And she obviously came out of it fine. So,
Right.
But, you know, that scare, it's
Sure.
like I couldn't even imagine. I don't think I would have realized what I was losing because it was so...
At that moment.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't know what I was... You know, he hadn't come home. You know, I'd never
You didn't
really
know what you
met
were
him.
getting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've got some...
Yeah, I mean, I was 20 years old, and my first son, his name was Ethan, and this is in my first marriage. Like, he came about 4 months early.
That's pretty early.
It's really early. He weighed 811 grams. For those of you on the metric system, that's roughly 1.5 pounds.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
My hand is 8 inches long.
Okay.
All right. Add another 4 inches onto that, and then you have the total length of his body.
Wow.
Those were his legs. I never actually got to hold him until the day he died. He died the day before my 21st birthday.
Fuck.
So he lived for 12 days. He was born December 8th, which is its own problem because my alive son, William, he was born December 4th.
Oh, jeez.
My daughter was born June 8th. And so when people say, oh, what's your son's birthday?
You mix them up.
I have to figure out which son they mean. But of course they mean the one who's literally standing in front of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, 12-8, no. 12-4, and then people look at me like I'm a dipshit, and I'm like, no, there's a whole history I'm not going into right now.
Yeah.
But what I figured out is my daughter's birthday is on the 8th. I'm like, I just add their birthdays together, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's fine, and then I don't have to tell
Then
it.
you have to explain it, yeah.
But yeah, I had a son. He was, again, like I said, born December 8th, died December 20th, and that was the day before I turned 21. So I'm 42 now, just turned. So that was 22 years ago.
Half a lifetime ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I when he was born too early. They say that they don't actually know the pathology as to why, but he was born too early, and he spent when he came out, he cried,
Yep.
which is fairly uncommon for someone born that early. So that was a good sign. And then they had him under like saran wrap, so it would like kind of greenhouse him.
Yep.
And they had like these little pads over his eyes, and they had the lead on his foot. I mean, he was tiny.
Yeah.
And the first couple nights, he was at Mercy San Juan, and then we got a phone, and we were at her parents' house, which was out past Woodland, like way out in the sticks. And the first couple nights, he was doing okay. And I think there's a level of like, they don't tell you everything because that's too much to tell you.
Sure.
But they let us know that he needed a surgery of some sort, and they didn't have the doctors on staff to do that there.
Got it.
And they had taken out they were giving him blood transfusions. And at that point, he only had about 5 tablespoons worth of blood in his body.
Wow.
So, I mean, I put a tablespoon of vanilla into a cookie mix.
Yeah.
4 times or 4 more of that, and that was his total blood volume. So they're having to give him transfusions. I mean, his bowels were like tissue paper.
Sure.
So they ended up having to transport him to another hospital. The morning, I don't remember what morning it was. And I mean, I have the death certificate. I don't spend that much time looking at it. I have pictures of him that I haven't looked at in 3 or 4 years.
Got it.
So they had to transport him to, I think it was Sutter General. Okay. It's the one that they've torn down since.
Okay.
Because they had the staff to do the operation that they needed. And I forget what the operation was at this point. So they transported him. That was the same. I don't know if you guys lived in Sacramento your whole lives.
Mm-mm.
Okay. That same morning, there was a 55-car pileup on I-5.
Fuck.
I missed it completely because we were going a different route. But I remember seeing that on the news in the waiting room. So if anybody live in the Sacramento area remembers the giant ass pileup back when we had fog in Sacramento.
Yeah.
That was that morning. So we're there at Sutter General, and they do the surgery, and they say that the IV went straight into his neck. It had gotten moved, and I guess it had gotten, so they had to put it back in, and there was they had some trouble with it. They finally got it in, and then he was okay again for a while. And then a few days later, now at this point, my wife at the time, and I try really hard to thread this needle. I think that, number one, we were way too young to be having kids.
Sure.
Number two, we were bonded by a previous trauma of her brother dying 6 months earlier, or by this point, a year earlier.
Got it.
And on top of that, I think she was, quite frankly, touched in the head. She was just spiritually, I can't possibly fathom what she actually thought, and she was not a very educated person.
Okay.
I don't hold that against her.
Sure.
But at the same time, during all that time, she wanted all the focus to be on her. And my justification for being okay with that was that he had a team of doctors, and she was still healing from a C-section.
Got it.
So I was focused on her. So I spent a lot of my time away from the hospital, which means I ended up spending a lot of time in therapy years later. But spent a lot of time away from the hospital tending to her. And so I didn't get as much time with him as I could have. And so they told us after a few days that he had his bowel had perforated. Maybe that was the reason why they needed to move him, actually.
Got it.
So they needed to cut a section out and give him basically a stoma, or the colostomy bag.
Colostomy, yeah.
And so they did that. And again, they had to remove a segment of his bowel, and it was tissue paper thin because he's 24 weeks old. You're supposed to be in the womb. And so a few days later, I think his liver lacerated, and then and that bleeds. And so when you lose blood oxygen. So then they have to put him on this rapid fire, and his body is vibrating on the bed, like this rapid ventilator.
Got it.
Well, it has to be cranked up to get him more oxygen. I mean, I can only imagine the suffering that is.
Sure.
But it has to be cranked up. Well, then it's cranked up so high that it bursts one of his lungs.
Oh, shit.
And then the worst part there is that you have to turn it up even higher because he's one
You
lung
have to
short.
make up for it. Oh, dude.
At this point, it's starting to cascade down, and 20 years old, right? And I ask, I'm like, and then they talk about there's bleeding into his brain. And by the way, I had to skip finals because I lived in the Bay Area, and she was living with her parents, and then I was going to finish up that year, and then I'd come up. Not very well planned out. So I asked the doctors flat out. I was like, at what point can we call this?
Yeah.
Because it really feels like you guys are keeping him alive for the sake of doing that, and that's not the quality of life that I can imagine. And the amount of relief on the surgeon's face.
Wow.
And like part of me is like, dude, I'm 20. You're in your 30s. Like, you should be. But like once I did that, it was almost like I unlocked the achievement, and then she could give me all that information.
Sure.
So she gives me all the information, and I was just like, we need to let him go. Like,
did you have to fight with the wife over that, or
no?
She was on board?
She was on board, and she had her own reasons,
Sure.
you know. But for me, it was that. So we had family come up, and it was very many of them. It was their first day seeing him.
Yeah.
Some of them it was their second day, and at that time, you know, I was really struggling with my parents and all kinds of. I mean, it was just I had like there weren't that many relationships I had that weren't toxic at that point.
Sure.
So it sucked. And then I had family coming up to see him, and then the part that I still to this day, and it's one of those things like I'm just going to regret it for the rest of my life, and people try to rationalize it and tell me, you know, and make it okay, and I'm like, no, there's no ameliorating this. This is just what happened, and I can forgive 20-year-old Damian for doing this, but 42-year-old Damian would never think to do this. And there's various rationalizations that I can, you know, use to get through it on most days. But some days I have what I call an Ethan day, where
Sure.
I'm down, you know. We said to take him off the vent and whatnot, take him off of support, and they took us to this room. It's a room where families go to say goodbye to people. And I just remember seeing, like, there's a lot of furniture packed into this room to make it look like, it almost looks like they had 3 living rooms or 3, like, parlors stuffed into one. And I got to hold him. And she got to hold him. And then I got to hold him. And I sang to him Blackbird by the Beatles. And then I wanted to keep holding him. And this is going to get really graphic. So if you need to fast forward by 15 seconds, do so now.
Yeah.
I saw his face turning black.
Yeah.
And I mean black, like he was suffocating, and they gave him enough morphine that it just helped him float away, but he's still going through it. And now we're done with that description. So I saw this happening, and I was holding him, and again, I'm holding someone who weighs less than 1.5 pounds at this point. I mean, the blankets weighed more than he did, so I never really touched him.
Yeah.
I held a bundle. And she wanted to leave the room, and she wanted me to go with her. And I had to make a choice right there. Do I stay with my son until he dies, or do I leave? And I left. And because, again, I did the math. She's alive.
Yeah.
And if this were an older relative, this would be the time where you say goodbye and they go harvest their organs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left him, and a nurse held him until he died. And there's very few things I regret my entire life that I will take to my grave with me. I will always regret that. I made the wrong choice for my son. I made the wrong choice for myself, and I wasn't strong enough to make the right one. And then the next day I turned 21. And I remember one of my parents wanting to go in and hold him. I was like, no, we were the last ones. This needs to be done. And we went to a restaurant. I think it was Epi's at the time.
I remember Epi's.
Okay. So we were there, and I got a phone call or a page, I forget which. It was the late 90s. And about 1:30 or so, he finally passed on. He finally stopped everything. And, you know, I've got real dark gallows humor, so I was already making dead baby jokes. And then they told me that, and, you know, I let everybody know that was the time. And then, you know, of course, I'm 20, so I'm not very mature. And so, you know, I'm still making those jokes. And that still gets brought up to me by family members, which they get to.
Yeah, but
you
it's
know
also like,
Yeah, I mean,
how else are you going to deal with it? You're like, you're 20 years old.
Any
like,
number of other ways, but the way I dealt with it was that.
Well,
and they get to have a problem with it, and that can just be a part of it. And I'm kind of comfortable with that. I'm okay with that. Not that I need to suffer from it, but I am okay with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the next day I turned 21, and I didn't have any other children with her. We didn't try. In many ways, it was a bullet dodged on some levels, because a few years later, we ended up divorcing, and I wasn't tied to her.
Yeah.
We had his ashes in an urn, and we dumped his ashes after we divorced, because it was kind of an odd thing of who gets custody, you know, and it's like, let's just let him go and let's let each other go. And so we did that. I did save a few of his ashes in there, and for a while I wore them on a pendant around my neck. And then I still have that. and then I went about my life, and I remarried, and I fell in love. I remarried, and she was a NICU nurse, actually, and she's when she did her student nursing, like that was one of those interesting connections that I had with my second wife, was that she'd been in every one of the rooms that I'd been in, and she knew very much what I'd gone through, and it was wonderful, like almost a bridge into normalcy, because she would know what I was dealing, and I would also know what she was dealing with, and so that was a nice connection that we had for the time that we were married.
Yeah.
I have a ornament that I hang every Christmas. Mm-hmm. I haven't told my children about him. My son is 10. My daughter is 7.5. I don't know that I ever will, quite honestly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but, because that's its own kettle of fish, and I don't need to foist my stuff upon them. I spent a lot of time in therapy dealing with the fact that my life was actually better that he was dead. Because, and we get into that, I chose to let him die. I did.
But I don't think your decision...
It wasn't a selfish one.
No. Yeah.
But it was a decision that ultimately did benefit my life, too.
Sure.
So, the consequence of me choosing to let him go meant that he didn't have such a... There's a word, I think, in the medical community, I think the word is gork. And gork means essentially that you were in a persistent vegetative state.
Yeah.
So we could have kept him alive, and he would have been a lifelong gork, and that would have that's no life, And I wouldn't have been able to go to college and get my degrees. I wouldn't have become the teacher that I am. I wouldn't have become the comic that I am. I wouldn't have had the second marriage that I did, or any of the subsequent relationships,
or your 2 kids.
Or my 2 children. Like there would have been so much more that had would have been an impact to those things. And I had a really good life after he died, like eventually. And so the fact that my life was better for him not being in it was one hell of a pill to swallow. And it's I can kind of keep things in their own little compartments. It's tough because I tried going to group grieving.
Yep.
That didn't work for me because other people lost, and this is where I felt like I had imposter syndrome. So my first ex-wife, the one with whom I had Ethan, her brother had died earlier that year.
Okay.
Her dad comes over to me and says, now you're in the most exclusive club that no man wants to be a part of. Men who'd lost their sons.
Oh.
Now, her brother was 24 when he died. That's an entire lifetime of loving and fighting and living and all of this. I had a kid for 12 days. That's, even if you, I don't like to compare grief.
Yeah.
But if he'd lived for a year, I would have been so much more broken.
Totally.
Yeah.
If he'd lived for 5 years, oh my God,
Yeah.
But he lived for 12 days, and that's my loss. That's my story. I was in this group with people who'd lost their sons as adults, who'd lost their sons as teenagers, who'd lost their daughters and sons. It was mostly sons, actually, interestingly. But one who'd lost their daughter on a camping trip when she was 18, she'd fallen, just all those things. And when you have a 12-day-old kid who should not have been ex utero, and then they die, there's a logic to it. But when there's an accident, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And so it's this interesting, I don't want to say there's a hierarchy, but it did feel like I don't belong with these people. These people had real losses, which I lost a whole lot of potential.
And
it's just that weird thing,
Yeah.
And so I didn't go back to those groups. And it was, there's a bit of imposter syndrome, but there's also a bit of I don't want to take time from what they're doing, and so I sought out therapy on my own.
Yeah.
And
it's good that you did that.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
A lot
Not
of
fair
people,
that you invalidate your own stuff because it's still a big deal.
Oh, it is. It's huge. I have a friend with whom I translate, and she and I were talking about me dating. Now that I'm, a single dad and stuff like that. And she said, whatever relationship ends for you, you're going to get right back out there. And I was like, yeah, it's probably true. And she's like, yeah, because for you, life is too short. Yeah. You know more than most that life is too short already. So you're going to process fast, and then you're going to get back out there. And she wasn't wrong, but that's been kind of, I don't live the next day is never going to come, but I got shit to do, man. I've only got, I've probably got fewer years ahead of me than I have behind me now.
I think that works for all of us at this table.
But I got shit to do, and I've seen I've seen life cut off too short.
There's,
So
there's days when I think it's like, is it right now? Like,
right.
totally. Well, I'm like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, that heart's not going right. I'm like, I should.
Yeah.
All those things start
Yeah.
going. I'll stop drinking soda. I'll stop drinking this.
Right.
Wait, and then you're like,
bargaining?
okay, I'm all right now. I gotta
Yeah,
go
never
back.
mind. Never mind.
Bargaining
I'm good.
for sure.
I'll have a mocha.
I'll do it. Where I'm like, wait, please let me get.
Right.
I think it was
One
2
more day.
weeks ago. You were laying on the ground thinking this was it, and then your daughter's jumping on top of you.
Oh yeah. She was jumping on my
funny.
back, and I was like, wait, because I was like, oh my god, I think I'm having a heart attack. And then
Oh,
she's like,
geez.
oh fun, and she's jumping on my back. I'm like, stop. I'm like, is this how I die? I totally thought. And
You
I was
literally
like,
die doing what you love.
yeah,
you know?
I was like, that was fun. And then also thinking like, what a horrible way to leave her.
Right.
Like, I played with him.
I
I
killed my
killed
dad.
him. I killed him.
Yeah.
The worst. I killed him.
Well, and that's, I
he
mean,
told me to stop jumping on him. I made his heart burst. Like, no,
yeah.
it was his choices that made his heart
Yeah.
explode.
Oh, shit.
but yeah, good luck unpacking that for
Oh,
years.
Yes. 47 years of self-abuse.
that'd be the
led up to
worst
that.
way to go. Yeah,
But-
sorry.
Yeah, it's just because I very deliberately say that I chose to let my son die.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a choice I made. Interestingly, it's absolutely impacted the way I'm a dad now because I have 2 living children.
Yeah.
For instance, after my son was 12 days old, I turned to my wife at the time and I said, "Okay, I don't know what to do tomorrow."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was joking and not joking at the same time. Like I was genuinely like, "I don't know what to do. At this point, you give them back."
Yeah.
And then they die, and then you come back at it later. And so day 13 rolled around, he was still fine. It also, I think, helped me deal very healthily with the fact that he's on the spectrum
Yeah.
because he ain't dead.
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
so what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
what?
And
yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
the thing that I had said for years was I can handle anything.
Yeah.
I can't handle a kid who has developmental delays. And then I had a kid who had developmental delays, and I was like, guess I can handle that
Yes,
too.
you can.
Yeah.
And there's a mourning process that you go through when you have a kid on the spectrum. And I don't know how it is for other people, but for me it was, your son has autism. Huh. Oh, that's a bummer. That really sucks. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
And it was literally like less than a 10-second turnaround for me. And I think one of the reasons I was able to jump in so quickly and just be like, okay, I'm committed to this. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's maximize what he can do and stuff like that. I think it is because I had a child die. Because to me, okay, here, I've seen the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had somebody that I dated for a while, and she asked early on, she's like, what if I break your heart? I'm like, bring it. Like, what the fuck do you think you can do? Like
can't do shit.
and it sounded terrible, but it's like, I'm pre-disastered. Like, this is, and it really is true though. Like, anybody who knows me for more than 5 minutes knows, holy shit, he loves the hell out of his kids.
Yeah.
He's very invested in them. And it's like, yeah, because I saw what happened once.
Yep.
And I ain't doing, and if that happens again, I'm squeezing everything I can out of this because I wasn't there. And that's the part that really, I mean, it's still, again, I don't think that will ever not be a thing.
Man,
I think
hate
I've
to
gone as far as I
yeah.
can with it.
I hate to say it, but I think
Yeah.
maybe your kids are benefiting from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's, it's like we were talking about earlier, how a full life, what you thought, what you lost in a full life
Yep.
opens up a whole way better one.
Oh, yeah.
And you can tell by your house that this is a super dad house.
Yeah.
Because you've got the Legos that are out. You
Yeah.
got the toys that are out.
The
you got
unfolded
artwork
laundry.
up. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is that same way.
Yeah. Pictures of me and my kids kind of everywhere. And
Yeah.
just fun shit all around. Yeah. It's
Does that impact for you, like, for me,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll talk with Robert a lot of times about, like, dating and stuff. What happens to me sometimes is, like, it's this weird catch-22 where it's like, I want someone to share my life with.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go, and once I meet him, then I'll start to think, but wait a minute. Are you going to take away my time?
Right, right.
Totally. And also,
Yeah.
will you fit? Will your kid fit? Like, how?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
all these things. And then sometimes I just go like, no.
Right.
No. And then it's like, that's not fair to them either.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, it's like this whole other thing where it's like, sometimes I'm like, do I want to let you into here? Like, I want my own time because I also feel like it's unfair
Right.
to Olivia in the long run that I'm just, the way I picture it is like I'm sitting at home with my cat. One of my cats I had to put down recently, which sucked. But it's basically that. For a long time, I was just waiting for her to come back,
Sure.
Yeah, so you run into that too where you're just like, it makes you
Yeah.
think of all these scenarios like, can you be around them?
Right.
How are you going to be, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I don't date someone that I wouldn't want around my kids on some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
The woman I dated after my second wife left, so once I had kids, my kids also don't know that I date. Like, they don't know shit about it. Like, my daughter recently said, I don't think you go tell jokes for a living. I think you have a secret girlfriend. And I said, yeah, I said, honey, that would be wonderful if that were true. But Christmas was paid by all the dumb jokes that I tell.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And she hears me doing puns all the time. And she's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, like all of Christmas was paid for with puns this year.
That's awesome.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was very proud.
That's amazing.
She looks at me and she goes, next year I can do without the presents.
Wow.
Like, fuck you, man.
She wants you home.
It's
Yeah.
her way of saying the puns are the reason you're single.
Yeah, in some ways.
She's like,
but like, you know, I think she's trying to be funny. But
Yeah,
like, my
yeah.
kids don't know that I date. I only date on the days where I don't have my kids. And so they, interestingly, the gal that I dated for quite some time, she originally was their babysitter so that I could go out on dates.
Sure.
And then like she and I just kind of fell into something wonderful, but we kept the relationship from the kids completely.
Yeah.
So she would still come over and babysit, and then I'd take off to go do work and stuff like that. Or the kids would ask for her to come over.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, cool. And then, you know, we had very strict, like, no touchy rules around the kids and that kind of stuff. So they never knew. I do think that my valuation of my time with the kids is absolutely an impediment to dating. And so the times that I have tried to date, those people have had to be either they've got their own kids so they get it, or they have to be okay with, oh, I'm only going to let you into parts of my life piecemeal and over a long period of time. Like,
totally.
There's a long vetting process before you get to meet my children. You know, the long-term ex-girlfriend, she had met the children and had been vetted as a babysitter. So it was kind of a reverse situation. But by and large, it's there's a long vetting process. And it's not so much like, oh, I don't want to share my time with them. It's are they worthy of being around my kids?
Totally.
So and that's the downside of being a single dad in your 40s is like, you know, you're racing against the clock on some levels, and on other levels you're running out the clock. You know, and it's just, you know, it's
Well,
it's,
and then
sucks.
you have to factor in the kids. Do they get along? Because
Right.
I mean, I can imagine there's a lot of relationships where you guys get along great, but the kids are not going to happen.
Yeah, and then do you want to date someone with kids if you've already got your own kids?
Sure.
Like that's it seems really
You're
one-sided
cutting off
or
your
selfish.
pool
Yeah, you are.
by a lot
you know?
if you don't.
But at the same time, you got to be fair to yourself. Like, do you really want to be in that dynamic, or do you just want to ask other people to be in that dynamic?
Yeah.
So,
and try to take it on. Yeah, because you got to honestly think about it. Like, will that work? Is that gonna how much?
Right.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, if you end up Brady bunching, then you've got a whole kettle of fish to deal with there, you know. Whereas if you just have stepmomming or stepdadding, then that's a different thing. And since we have kids, we would be asking someone else to stepmom, you know, and do they need step siblings, you know, or not? And you know, mileage varies. I mean, again, I like broccoli, like different choices for different folks. But
I totally, what hurts me, we're 50-50, but I'll end up with Olivia a lot more, and I will take her last minute. Yeah. So that really
first right of refusal.
Because there'll be stuff where just like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get my daughter tonight, and they're just like, you know, obviously they're like, yeah, you're full of crap. Like, that's it.
Right.
But I'm making that choice, and and that's totally.
I remember you had that one. It's like, wasn't there somewhere you can just put her?
Wow.
Like,
it's not a dog.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Someone told me that, and I was like, it's like that old Saturday Night Live. It's like, boo.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Get out of here.
Oh, you're done. Okay.
Get out of here. Yeah.
I've never had anything like that. In fact, that seems to be to borrow the term from a local comic, a panty dropper. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be with my kids. Like, oh. And it's like, yeah, that's great that gets you going, but I'm going to go be with my kids.
Yeah, I'm actually saying it.
Yeah.
What you don't know about Mike though is he likes them young. So they don't know what it's like to have kids. So they're still selfish.
Okay.
Well, yeah, compared to how
old you are.
It's because we're old.
Yeah.
A lot. His preference
20.
is people that weren't alive when we were graduating high school.
Oh, well, let me ask. So there's a rule. There's a formula.
Oh, what's the formula? Okay.
Half your
plus
age plus 7.
Yeah.
Oh, it's supposed to be half my age plus 7.
It's just still creepy.
No, it's just inside of creepy. And I shit you not, because like I'm
supposed
40.
to be at 30 and up.
Yep.
So let's see.
I don't mind 30 and
so
up.
24. So 31 would be your youngest.
Right. So
it's still
not too bad.
Yeah. See, 31 and how old are you? 48?
47.
47.
Yeah.
So 31 and 47. Like you see people going out. You're like, if he's less mature, if she's more mature, it's probably they're gonna meet in the middle. Like for me, I'm 42. Last year I was 41. Obviously,
so 28-year-old would be yours.
Right. Yeah. Now that's a little but that's far less creepy than 27. So, like, I have a friend who's, I think she's 28, and I was like, could I see that becomes the bar. It's like, could I see myself dating her? Yeah, I could. Okay, and then I have another friend who's, 24, 25. I'm like,
no.
No.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck would you talk about?
Right. That's, that would just be a sex thing.
That would be the physical thing, which is wonderful.
Sure.
But then I'd probably kill myself trying to keep up. Damn near 50.
Yeah.
It's, my other boyfriend could do it 4 times a night.
Yeah, but, he never satisfied you once. So, So, it's, well, I only get off this way. Well, okay, now we'll try this other thing too, because you clearly haven't had somebody listen to you. But yeah, so half your age plus 7 is the formula.
Yeah. So your 2s are gone.
All right.
But anyway, that
Well, the worst is that they always ruin it, or it's like, they'll talk about like where we were when this person was born.
You were in college when she was born.
Like our friend Roger will do that. He'll be like, it'll just start sending stuff with, like what? Oh, so when they were
when Kurt
born,
Cobain killed himself, where were you?
It's like,
she's like, who's that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, and this is going to sound funny, but like the difference between you and me very much is like you're actually attractive, whereas I have to get by on personality. Like yours probably gets in your way, but like your looks get your foot in the door.
Well, he has girls buying him drinks in bars thinking he's in his 30s.
I don't get that.
No,
I get like they have to be very specifically after my phenotype, which is weird on its own, or they have to like look past that and see my personality, which is its own problem. But
please.
But I will say this: when it comes to dating, though, it is something, having the first son is something that I'll bring up fairly swiftly. Not like on the first date or by appetizers, but like probably within a month of any kind of a serious relationship. It is, by the way, here's a thing that's true about me.
Yeah.
You need to know this.
Yeah.
Because there will be days where I just disappear.
Do you find that birthday and death day come around? I mean, it's tough because your other kid is right in the middle there.
Yep. So my son had a birthday. My alive son had a birthday party. I think it was last year or the year before. And because we do split custody and all that, and because we don't really get along quite often, there ended up being problems and stuff like that. And I planned his birthday party for a Sunday. Now, his mom works on a Sunday, but all the family could come up on that Sunday. And she did a different party where it was like a different thing. I said, no, I'm going to do the party on the Sunday. And my very good friend called me out on it. It's like, dude, you planned a party for when his mom couldn't come. You're clearly sending a signal there. And I said, no, that's not why I did that. He's like, really? Come on, you guys been fighting. And I said, I did it because Saturday is December 8th, and I'm not about to celebrate one son's birthday when the other one was born.
Yeah.
And my friend just got really quiet. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't think of that because, and
who would?
Right. And that's how people, a lot of times it's so hard to remember where people, where you think it's like we get stuck thinking what other people are doing things about. And we have, I hate.
So, his birthday really hit me on certain years.
Sure.
And then there'd be a 3-year period where this is one of those where I knew my marriage was over kind of moments. There was like a 3-year period where I'd forgotten his birthday. Yeah. And then I felt bad when I remembered it. And then, and she was always very, very compassionate. And then one year she's like, you're not over that yet? And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, we've stepped somewhere different, So I'm a teacher. And so I keep getting older. The kids stay the same age. Yep. I'm always dealing with 14 to 18-year-olds, right? So when he was old enough that he could have been one of my students was a hard year.
Yeah.
And so the next 4 years were very hard. When he was old enough that he was the age of these kids that were graduating, that was a really hard year. And that happened to coincide with my divorce year as well. And those kids were absolutely an amazing group of kids to begin with. And so, I had informed them because I was like, I will be teaching on this day, but like this is a hard thing.
Yeah.
You know, so, just so you know what's up. But yeah, so when he would have been 18 was a hard year. When he would have been 20 was a hard year, which I believe was just last year. Yeah.
Okay.
And then this year was a little tough too, because he would have been 21.
The same age as you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then like when his death day came,
Yeah.
he would have been older than I was when he was born
Yeah.
and when he died. And I remember thinking that that's probably the last milestone birthday that's going to bother me.
Yeah.
On any kind of real level. And
Sure.
it didn't hit me that hard. I was pleasantly surprised. Last year's did, because he was the same age that I was.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that 21 years has passed, and now there's no more milestones for that. I'm not really going to get upset like, oh, this is the first year he could have rented a car.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
big fucking deal. But yeah, I think that's those milestones, because I'm an historian, so milestones matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's temporal milestones, and so definitely thinking about his birthday and his death day on those times, absolutely. Some years would wreck me, and other years, I had so much going on. During the non-sleeping years, because my son didn't sleep, probably flew by and I didn't notice.
Sure.
Or it was like I didn't have time to notice because I got diapers to change or this or that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And again, life is for living, and so I'm going to, and so people are like, oh man, the love of your life divorced you. What are you going to do? Well, I'm probably going to wake up tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. I said, well, then I got to keep going. And I got to be here for the kids, and so there's a lot of that. And then, the most recent breakup, I loved her dearly, and it was a wonderful relationship, and there was nothing really wrong to end it. It was the only positive breakup I've ever had. And people ask, well, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm going to keep going, because I've had the day where I had to say, let my son die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I had the day where I sang to him Blackbird by the Beatles.
Yeah.
And the next day I woke up. So I got to keep going.
Yeah.
And interestingly, my alive son, I sang a Beatles song to him when he was born, in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter, when she was born, I was like, what Beatles song will it be? But Ben E. King's Stand By Me kept coming on when she was in utero, and she would kick a lot more during that.
Okay.
That's so
And
cool.
so I ended up singing her that. So she's the only harmony to not get a Beatles song. Each child had a song. And to this day, I have a hard time with when Blackbird comes on. I often will skip it, to be honest.
I'm trying to remember what movie, Boss Baby.
Oh, did they do that?
Yeah, that was a big one. So it was like,
I'm glad I missed that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it comes up throughout the movie. So it's not even something like.
I've watched that with my kids, and I must have blocked it out, or I must have found myself in another room.
Sure.
So
stay in the other room.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny movie, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just-
And my kids are used to seeing me cry too.
Sure.
Like they genuinely, because I'm like, I need to be here for them, and that means they need to see people processing grief in a healthy way. I had people ask me, how many kids do you have? And I'm like, well, right now, 2.
Yeah.
And that will leave the door open for them to ask. And if they ask, then I'll usually tell them, unless it's, with my children around. And if not, then that's cool too.
Or
but
people just think you're making a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Being a comic, that helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
But-
Oh, that Damien.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
always messing with
Yeah.
us. Do we want to bother for the pun?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, maybe they think it's that. It's like, is this a trap?
right, yeah. So I don't mind that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it absolutely does affect, and maybe that's why I process things as quickly as I do.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, I woke up alive again,
Yeah.
and I know someone who didn't. So here we go. Life is for living.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we're going to go to a bad dad that's just silly instead of.
An uplifting one that even got vetted by my daughter because
Yes.
she
was
thought-
really upset.
Yeah, she was mad at this for it being funny. She was just like, "This is because it's
This
a
is-
nightmare of a
yeah.
kid." Yeah,
Sure.
Dad accidentally sent his daughter to preschool without pants, and Mom wasn't too happy.
Oh,
So the dad apparently doesn't normally take the kid to school.
okay.
So the mom was running late, or said, "Can you dress her and take her to school?"
Uh-huh.
It's a 3-year-old, so it's preschool.
Okay.
And the dad said, "Pick out some shorts." Which, why you would let a 3-year-old? I mean, it's good because you empower your
he
kids.
just didn't
Right.
know. Yeah,
But she went and grabbed some training pants.
Oh no.
So he pretty much sent her to school in diapers.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I know.
Wait, he sent her. No, you walked them up to the door.
He took her.
He took her there. Okay. Well,
and then no one told him. Yeah.
Okay.
No one told
my
him.
next question.
Make it even worse.
There are preschool teachers there.
To tell him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did. And
Oh wow.
makes it so much worse.
And then, so I'm looking.
So like, go ahead and leave her so we can judge you the second you got.
Well,
her.
Or
shame
was
on
it
the
one of those?
dad?
Yeah,
because
obviously.
he didn't notice. He just thought they were just short. This was from a story from the summer.
Sure.
So you would send your kid to school.
Okay.
in
Yeah.
shorts.
In shorts. That's fine.
So, I mean, because now I'd be like, why the fuck are you sending your kid to shorts
Right,
in
right,
the
right.
winter? But yeah, he just couldn't tell the difference. So it's like, shame
Okay.
on you, Dad, for not fucking knowing the difference between.
Yeah.
Obviously
Yeah.
he's not changing or diapers or anything like that, or
True.
involved in potty training.
Oh wow.
Well, that
Yeah.
was clearly what Olivia's angle was
Right.
just like, no.
Okay.
She had no, like, it was just like,
Right.
no. And we're like, well, he could have been no.
No. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm just like laying out a preschool. I could see the teachers being over in different corners,
Yeah.
taking care of kids already, and
Yep.
he's got her. He's like, and he waves and he signs. He's like, okay, I love you. Now go play. And
Yep.
then he's out the door by the time they'd notice. That's the only way I could think of it happening.
Still, I'd be
I'm
like,
sure-
how can you leave your kid without someone physically
I'm
being
sure
there?
preschool teachers see the whole fucking gamut.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
at least she had something on.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah.
and it was clean.
Yeah.
Right.
So
They might have just went like, Jesus.
So, but the mom apparently picked up the kid, and then she posted the
Oh, no.
the Instagram. And
Nothing
the
like some public
conversation
shaming for,
Right.
for a healthy
between-
marriage.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So she wrote to her husband, "You sent her to school in underwear," and he writes back, "Who?"
Who?
So obviously, this dad is.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he insisted that she picked him out. Insisted they were shorts.
I like
Okay.
that it's the daughter.
and she writes back, "They're training underwear. She's in underwear."
She's 3.
So,
She said it was.
So, and the dad, all he could say was, "At least she was wearing something."
Well, that's a really low bar, but,
yeah.
Yeah.
She's alive. It's like the ones that say, she's alive, isn't she?
right. Yeah.
It's like,
So, yeah.
no thanks to all the trauma.
right.
I'll post a link to this because it's got a pretty funny picture of it.
Yeah, that's fun. Oh, man.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Oli was just like, before she really looked at the picture, just the title was enough to make her freak
She
out.
was
'Cause it
pissed.
it sounds like one of her nightmares.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just
the
like,
nightmare
yeah.
of like waking
Well,
up.
what I can't
They're
get
naked
over
at school or something. You
is
know?
Olivia's like, "It was a girl. That's so much worse."
Yeah, made her so mad.
At that age, I don't know that
Yeah.
it makes a
There's
difference.
definitely a gender.
I think she just knows that with boys. I think we kind of would have been like,
Whatever.
nah.
Well,
Yeah.
Especially up until 7 or 8.
Yeah, true.
Whatever.
Run around in your underwear at home.
Yeah.
Whereas
Like I
girls
do.
are.
Yeah. You would have been like, so what? I forgot my pants. What do you want? And then, all right, let's play.
It's cool out. We're good.
What do you want?
Yeah.
All right. But girls, it's like, oh my God.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Well, Damien, do you have
Yeah.
anything to plug?
Yeah. Am I alled to plug my own podcast?
course.
on your
Yes,
podcast.
definitely.
Okay.
and it's
I'll
an
plug it.
amazing podcast.
Oh, thank
yes.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
So, I run a podcast, or I produce, or I record a podcast. There's a podcast
Yes.
out there with my name and Ed. So Damian Harmony and Ed Blaylock. We do something called A Geek History of Time. Producer George as well, and it's a look at various geekdoms, various fandoms, and looking at like the historical things that either helped cook them up or that they touch upon. So, for instance,
Yeah. That got me. Like,
Yeah.
Robert would yell at me because I wouldn't listen to our own podcast. That got me to. He knew that was like a gateway drug because
Oh,
he
nice.
said, my friend
Uh-huh.
did one on Harry Potter, and I was like, "Oh, really?"
okay.
And then I listened to that one. That one's awesome.
Thank
That
you.
made me listen to the 2-parter on the Civil War Marvel Comics
Oh,
one.
wonderful.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but it worked. And now I actually.
Oh, and I
but
did
He
take
had
a-
to show me how to get podcasts. Like for some reason, that's
He was
how
on a
sad it is.
podcast for a year
I'm like,
already.
right.
On the drive over here, I'm like, at what point did I become a 90-year-old man? Like,
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like I was like, well, I can't figure it out. Like, he's like, you just download them. I'm like, oh, that's so simple.
yeah.
I took
No,
the,
I like
Automatically.
them.
I took the personality test that you guys talked about on that.
Oh yeah, how'd you do?
I'm a Hufflepuff.
Attaboy.
Did he do
big
the one?
personality
Pottermore.
one.
Oh yeah, the Pottermore. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
So,
got Hufflepuff.
I'm a
See, I'm
Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff.
You too?
Yeah,
I
no.
wish I was.
Yeah.
I wish I was. Like to me, that's again, age and whatnot kind of dictate. But like, I know that everybody who knows me knows I'm Ravenclaw. It's like, you get lost in your own head, man. Like you
Yeah.
come up with all kinds of patterns for shit.
And I think it's also would be age based. Like I could see in my
Oh,
20s, I would have been probably more like Slytherin
Or
or something.
Gryffindor,
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, like when I look at it,
Like, let's just take care of each other.
yeah. And I knew when, and this would be a spoiler alert, though, if you haven't read the books or whatnot, but when we were reading the books together, me and Oli, and Cedric Diggory basically just turns around and gets zapped. Like they're like, get out of here. What? I'm like, that's totally, I always known as a kid, whenever we read anything about war and stuff, I'm like, I can't be in a war. I'm the one that they're going to go, hey, Gray, see if it's clear. Bach! Oh, and that's it.
This is serious.
I'm not
Send
gonna,
Greg.
Yeah, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to be jumping out. I'm not freaking Harry Potter. No, dude. I'm the one that's like, I can't see quite right. I'm not quite fast, like I'm going to draw. Like, I'm going to do the propaganda.
Cannon fodder.
Somewhere safe.
Sure. Yeah.
But but back to your podcast. What I like about it is because I'm my wife always calls me a geek, but even stuff I'm not interested in, I get interested because you guys go at it from a weird angle, like the whole comic book stuff. Yeah.
The Fantastic Four is Grotesque America.
Yeah. I'm not into comics. And even the one with the first 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah. The Comic Book Code Authority.
That. Yeah. And then I'm like, I don't give a fuck about comic books. I gave a fuck about those, you know? And just the whole thing about where, like, I don't know which one it was where you talked about the colors for the good guys always wear primary colors.
Oh,
and the bad guys. That was the Fantastic Four.
I think that was the Fantastic Four
thing
one,
was orange.
Yes. And so that makes him a little bit out of step with the rest of the team.
Was it a compound color, whatever what's after primary?
Oh,
secondary color.
Yeah. Secondary colors. Hulk is, he is a loner, and he is very often an anti-hero, and he's green and he has purple pants.
So he's mixed.
He's very much he's a hero of circumstance, and that's about it. And again, it shows how his anger is a sickness.
Sure.
So the green that he has is a sickness. The purple is he was a leader of men. He was very smart.
Yep.
And so it's that duality, and plus those are complementary to each other.
Got it.
But now anybody who fights him, you'll notice they're even grosser green.
Sure.
Or they're orange. Whereas any good guys who try to stop him, they're all primary colored up. So it's fun.
If this level of
no, I love it.
Dissecting sounds good.
The stuff that they go into, and especially
it's
just I love it because you guys have it at such another level, and the way you're tying it into history, I just don't know enough of it. So I'm like, wow, I really don't know enough of anything.
It's so fun because my favorite episodes are like, people are like, okay, which one should I listen to? I said, well, obviously it depends on what you like.
Yeah.
So first we go with that. But then they're like, well, which episode do you really like? And all of my favorite episodes are the ones where Ed teaches me stuff.
Yeah.
Where I'm the backup singer. And so I always tell people the Dungeons and Dragons, the one where it's about the fighter, when you get up to rank 9 of fighter. Yeah. That's one of my favoriteest.
The palace or the fortification.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's regionalism of the United States and the West and stuff like that. And I was like, and I even asked, I'm like, was he born in like the Midwest? And he's like, interesting you would ask that, And so just like, I really like that episode a lot. His J.R.R. Tolkien and the World Wars episodes, I think are just probably our best episodes. Those are where he shines the most. I think my shine the most might be the Fantastic Four one, and also the pro wrestling one. But that's just because I'm a sucker for pro wrestling.
Makes 2 of us.
So yeah. So that's our podcast. So A Geek History of Time.
To it. Yes.
Yep. I also am a producer and co-creator and co-star of Capital Punishment, which is a pun tournament that happens every month. This coming February 7th. We will be at Luna's at 8 o'clock. We're also going to be on KCRA 3 on the 13th.
They filmed
at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Or no, at 7, I think. At 7 p.m. for a segment for a thing they call a word of mouth. So we're going to be featured on that.
Nice.
We're also going to be at Sketchfest on the 22nd.
In San Francisco?
Yep, in San Francisco.
Nice.
Yep, that's our second year selling out there.
Very cool.
We've sold out for the last, I want to say 2 years now.
Okay.
And we're continuing to do so. We're booked out through June, I want to say. Like I'm putting the finishing touches on the April booking, and then I'm going to start booking the May show and then the June show.
How does it work? Because I haven't been to. How do they?
It's intimidating.
It's a lot of fun. And it's essentially 8 Mile meets pro wrestling meets dad jokes.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a battle back and forth. So we have a wheel that we spin, and the whole audience shouts, "Spin that wheel!" It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it comes up on a topic, and say it comes up on Harry Potter.
Okay.
And you and I have to battle back and forth using Harry Potter puns. Yeah, and you'll huffle and you're puffle, but you're not going to blow my house down. And you'd be like, "Oh, I think I could slither in a good pun there," and then we'll bounce back and forth. Basically, you get a strike if you can't answer with a pun.
Okay.
You get a strike if you use a pun that's already been used, or you get a strike if you can't think of anything.
Okay.
Right. So
and then 3 strikes?
3 strikes and you're out.
All right.
And it's best 2 out of 3.
Yep.
Okay.
So we spin the wheel again. And then, whoever wins that one, we might have to go to a third round. And it's a tournament. So it's, you two against each other, and let's say that you win. And so you then go to take on the winner of the next round. And then you guys go against each other for the joy and the honor of fighting against myself and Daniel Humbarger, my co-producer, co-creator of this show. And we come out and we're the boss battle.
Oh,
and
nice.
it's
Twice
totally
as hard.
it's twice as hard. It's the two of us. It's totally stacked against you. You get 3 strikes, we get 6. You have to knock us out.
Boss.
Has
It's
that
a
ever
boss
happened?
battle. Yeah, we've lost 5 times.
Wow.
In the 3.5 years that we've been doing it.
Wow.
5 times. One of them became our business manager.
Nice.
And then others we've brought back,
Cool.
and we did a show at the Punchline a few months ago.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Mark Berg is the host. He's an amazing referee and host, and a local comic as well. And he's just perfect for the part. So we always get local comics, sometimes comics from farther away, and also people who are not comics. Get to test their mettle against everyone, and they're usually the ones that do the most, which is really a lot of fun.
I took my wife to see one. Well,
yeah?
What month was it where you guys had the film crew?
Oh, that was November. That was the all teacher edition.
Yeah, that was the one I went to, and
Yeah.
my wife was just sitting there like, because she is awful with puns, and it drives me fucking nuts. And she's like, "Why did they say this? Why did they say that?" I'm like, "Well, fucking get on there."
Yeah, I was gonna say your wife should get on the
she
show.
should get on there.
I've got an opening in May.
Yeah.
I will let her know.
Yeah.
But my thing is like, you better, because she loves improv and stuff.
Sure.
So she's done a bunch of improv.
Oh god,
but-
improv people are great for that
Yeah.
show too. They
But
really
it was
are.
just so funny because like I would feel like talons in my leg, like, and then she would like whisper in my ear. I'm like, "Shut up! I can't hear what they're saying."
Yeah, yeah.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
she should be on it.
But
Yeah.
she was just like, "Shh." It was like my kid bouncing around, and
Right.
it was like, settle down. Just
Oh,
I'm
I
not
love
bringing
that.
you out here.
I love
but-
that. We also do a competition in the middle of the show quite often, where the audience competes. We'll combine 2 topics. Like this last time was desserts and serial killers. So you have to come up with a dessert based on a serial
Ooh.
killer's name and
okay.
pun that together. And the winner gets one of our pins because we have pun pins. And otherwise we sell them. And somebody came up with David Berkowitz It's.
Nice.
It was so beautiful. I loved
Yeah.
it. And we've done presidents and beers, and stuff like that. So it's just all kinds of. We did Star Wars porn once, so that was a pretty good one.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's been going 3.5 years. It shows no sign of slowing down. In fact, it keeps getting bigger.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic. So that's February 7th is the next show. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Capital Puns or Capital Punishment, Capital with an O. And you'll probably find us. You could also just find me, Harmony, on Instagram and on Twitter, and Damian Harmony on Facebook as well. So feel free to drop me a line, especially if you think you can be on the show. So tell your wife. If you got the pun capability, then you should absolutely come out and see if we can get you on it, because it's a lot of fun.
You
That's
should
cool.
talk to her first and test her out.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
I'm sure
sounds
you can
fun.
weed it out.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
And
so-
I always encourage people, come to a show first so you see what you're getting into. But then, come hit me up and we'll see where you can fit you, because I book them 3-4 months out in advance, so you got plenty of time to prep.
Still
Freaking
have
awesome.
bruises on my fucking leg.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's fun.
Email us, thestandupdads@gmail.com. Subscribe. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and we drop every Sunday. And if you need artwork,
Go to pencilforhire.com. That's pencil, F-O-R, hire.com. I always...
no, you're doing good.
And Pencil for Hire on Instagram, although I still need to update the website. But that's what happens, man. You know,
Dad life, yo.
If
Dad
you want to
life,
see what his
yeah.
artwork looked like 5 years ago,
That's why I always say the Instagram. The Instagram, I post more to it.
Okay.
You see more of on
Although-
Instagram. You see more of what I like to draw on my own,
Uh-huh.
and on my website, you see more of like what I've done either for cartoons or like
Pencil
you know,
for Hire is a
clients.
good rabbit hole.
That sounds
You'll
fun.
see my
And then you better bring back Clumsy Love soon, or I'm going to start giving you shit.
Yeah, I did a comic strip for like 5 years.
Oh, wow.
That was based. It started. I was like me and my ex-wife and our cats, and then we
Okay.
had my daughter, and then basically life happened. You know,
Yeah.
moved for a job, and then what really killed it was I tried to move to a different provider online and lost all my posts.
Oh, no.
And then I was furious, and I haven't gone back
Haven't gone
to
back
doing
yet.
it.
Yeah, you
But
got
I want
the
to put it back
strips.
up. All the strips.
You just
I have
don't
all
have
the strips.
the-
yeah.
okay.
So what I want to do is what I thought would be kind of cool is that when it started, it was, you know, a single couple with basically pets that were our kids, and
Right.
then we had a child, and now it would be single dad. You know, when
Oh,
I
it's-
started
it's-
up again. So.
It's like a more authentic version of For Better, For Worse.
Yeah.
totally,
Something
yeah.
for everybody.
And the thing is, my daughter's old enough now that she loves reading the old ones because there's a ton of comics that are just like
that's-
where she's like, "Is that real?" And it's like, yeah, like a lot of them were just us doing comics that were, you know, based on us.
Yeah, I remember you would tell me, like, this just happened, and then, like, 2 days later, I'd see it on your strip.
Oh, that's
yeah.
neat.
Yeah, so she's
So your
got
daughter
'em
can
and
see
she'll-
like a chronicle of
Yeah.
when-
totally. Yeah, she can read. She'll
That's
read
neat.
them. You know, I have some up in the house or whatever, and she likes to point them out to
Oh,
people
that's
or
cool.
whatever.
And
where
I envy you because you have a history of stuff that I would have forgotten. Because my kid did all sorts of funny,
and I
stupid
forget.
shit.
Right.
Yeah,
But you can look back and go, oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, because she loves the one where it's like, you know, there's a couple of them where she, like, I basically said, you know, she's like, "I love you, Daddy." I'm like, "I love you more." You know,
More,
I love
yeah.
you more. And she's like, "I love Mama more." And I was like,
Yeah.
"That's not how it's supposed to go." You know, and she's like, "Whatever."
Yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, the other one was, there's one I have up there. That's when we were playing Legos.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, you need to take, take that out of your mouth or whatever. And she's like, I am Daddy. And she just leaves it there. I'm like, you still have to take it out. Like, come on, Yeah,
Oh,
it's fun. There's so many of them.
I used to play this game for myself shortly after the divorce, and it was, are the kids quoting a movie, or are they saying stuff that their mom said about me?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, my
So-
God.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they
yes.
just watched Zootopia. And then my son says, my mommy says that she wishes you were dead. And I was like,
Whoa.
I'm pretty sure that's from Zootopia.
Yeah.
I'm like
good to
75% sure that that's from Zootopia.
Yes. We
And so
talked about that.
I wish I
yeah.
could have drawn that shit.
Yeah,
That would have been
where
rad.
Yeah, because that happened that happened earlier in the year where
wow.
I had told Oli about going into like a a talent show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should do this, and she's like, "I wish you would be happy with the daughter you have, and not with it." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, I asked her mom, like, "Are you reading like self-help books? Like, what the heck?" And then when we started listening to freaking Harry Potter in the Audible form,
Yeah.
it's a Dumbledore. I'm like, so I'm like, on the one hand, I told her, really good that you kept this in your back pocket for
Right.
me reading it to you like months ago.
Yeah.
The other hand,
He's
now I
scared
know
me,
where
kid.
it's at.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, that's cool. That's
Little
way different.
Plagiarist.
But it freaked me out. I was like, what the hell? Like,
My daughter said she wished she was an orphan at one point.
Whoa. Where'd
so
that come
awesome.
from?
Harry Potter.
see, there you go.
And I was like,
Dang it.
God damn. And like, but I'm like talking her mom down from like, your daughter's not trying to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, and we're
She doesn't understand what an orphan really is.
right, and
That's so
like,
funny.
but holy shit. I was like, yeah, she probably got that from Harry Potter.
Wow.
So my kids call each other stupid because of Peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
Because the cartoons were
Blockhead.
like in the 60s,
I love
so kids were way shittier. So yeah, it's so yeah.
That's so funny. I so approve of old Peanuts. I love those. I have one up on the wall. That's
Oh,
the
neat.
first one
Uh-huh.
that my brother gave me. They made a toy of like the very first Charlie Brown. They have the
Yeah.
strip there,
Yeah, yeah.
and the very first strip sets the whole thing. And he's walking, and someone goes, "Oh, here comes good old Charlie Brown."
I remember this.
And he's like, "There goes good old Charlie Brown." And the last panel's how I hate him.
Yep.
Like, it's like,
Yep.
dang, that's like, right.
Yeah.
Like, I love
Have you
that.
been to the Schultz Museum?
Yes.
I took my kids to that, and because we're redheads, we can get in February for free.
Really? That's so awesome.
It's so cool.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so we'll
Yes.
probably go back.
It is the best. The Schultz Museum.
It's awesome. It's
Yeah.
so low key.
I'm not a Schultz guy.
And me either.
Sadly.
I'm not a train guy either, but my son's into trains. So,
Okay.
But like we went there and he was beside himself with how overjoyed he was at looking at all the Charlie. Like in the bathroom, there's Charlie Brown strips, and he's just like yelling and celebrating, and like, I'm like, dude, keep it in the urinal, keep it in the urinal. But I mean, it was so cool. So
the
that
thing
reminds
that
me, I got to tell him.
that blew my mind of there was the way, because I've always loved Peanuts, but I didn't love from when I was a kid onward, and it went 50 years.
Right.
And what I realized is when they put out they switch out 100 pieces of original art like every couple months. I realized as I was reading them, I'm like, it's insane that even though I didn't like the art style as much later, he was still funny. Like there's somewhere I was getting laughs, and I'm like, 50 years later, like that's insane that you could create like that many characters and be able to like, still be funny beyond a 10-year period.
That's the difference between Reggie Jackson and Will Clark. Like Reggie Jackson was swing for the fences, led the league in strikeouts, like still has the record. Will Clark never going to get into the Hall of Fame, but dude could get on base.
Yeah.
And I think Charles Schultz always got on base.
Yeah.
He never hit more than a double. He really didn't. Like Gary Larson, that's your in the park, home run guy. But, and then there's some other people where it's like, that's a home run. And then you have like months and months of strikeouts.
Did Larson, I know he's got a site up
He's coming
now.
back.
Yeah.
Well, he's the site's up now.
Is it?
Is he putting out new stuff on there, or is it just old stuff?
I don't mind even if it's old. I will buy the app if he makes an app, because that's the
There's
perfect
just a
size for
website.
that.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
See, what I would say is with Schultz though,
I
do feel like he has that home run area, but it's a period that you don't see as much. It's maybe like 1958, 59 through 68, 69. All the stuff that we take for granted because they made all those specials and all that.
Right.
Like he got stuff put into the, like security blanket.
Right.
Is him,
Yeah.
And those old strips are hilarious.
He integrated school. Too.
Yeah,
because he brought in Franklin.
Yeah,
and the first time Franklin and Linus talk is about Franklin's dad being in Vietnam.
Wow.
Straight up, and then like Southern papers said, could you just not put Franklin in school with everyone? And he's like, no, I'm gonna do what I want, because they were segregated.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so he did that. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And the whole reason why there's some like really kind of jacked up racial stuff with Franklin in the cartoons is because he didn't have full creative control over that. And so they had Snoopy's soul brother handshake with him, and they had Franklin sitting on his own side at Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
I didn't even
have
notice
full
that.
control.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
makes me think of Mr. Rogers washing his feet in the kiddie
Oh,
pool.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god dang.
Yeah, all these things like fuck you. What are
Yeah.
you gonna do?
Yeah.
Which I love that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Smothers
I do
Brothers
admire.
too.
Yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
So
But I know what you mean about the home run of certain strips that, and for me, most of those ones have a 10-year period where then they
time
stop,
out,
and that's Far Side and Calvin and Hobbes.
Yep.
Are both ones
You're
where
right.
they're just like bam out the gate, amazing, and then they just were like, I'm done.
You're
know?
right.
Like they
You're
just,
right.
They're Jim Brown. They're like, I'm 28. I'm done.
I'm
You
done.
know,
Yeah, I was just thinking
yeah.
baseball. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
there's Sandy Koufax.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy is Cy Young.
Yeah.
Schultz is Cy Young.
Schultz is like, the one
Yeah.
that's like, you're never going to touch that. Like,
Right.
no one, can you live that long? Can you start that early? Can you be that, like, the odds of it is never. But to hit something like that where you're that good that long is, Doonesbury is probably the next closest where you have.
And he's only hitting doubles too.
Yeah.
Like most of the time. Like he'll get it to the warning track. Sometimes he'll hit harder.
Yeah,
But
it's not the same as Farside or.
The Dewsbury guy didn't do Bloom County, did he?
No,
someone else.
That's Burt
Okay.
Breathed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar style though. Yeah.
Okay.
Dunes County did Opus though, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was one where I felt like he had, for me, more of a 5-year period that was just out of the world. Like I was so into it. Like when Bill the Cat first came out and Opus, all that stuff. But then it wasn't as. He didn't sustain it the same as.
And part of it's
other
tied
guys.
to timeliness and the zeitgeist at the time, whereas Charles Schultz, he was able to. Yeah, you're absolutely. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
To put it in terms that you'd understand.
Let's tell you.
So we're talking like the difference between John Cena or Hulk Hogan versus like Vern Gagne. Vern Gagne, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, Lou
Bald
Thez.
guy. That was,
Lou Thez would be a great example. That's your Charles Schultz. Whereas like these other guys we're talking about, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin or you know,
the king of that.
Although
era.
Vern kind of led to the I don't know. He was part of the downfall of AWA. Anyway.
Oh, he absolutely was.
So I mean,
but he also had a really long career. Same thing with Lou Thez. You know, he had a very, very long career. You know, and was excellent all the way through. Doesn't mean they were good bookers, but you know they're excellent wrestlers all the way through.
Greg Gagne, he couldn't pronounce suplex.
Souffle.
No, it was always souflex.
Souflex. Oh, that's right.
Souflex.
Because then the other guys called it a souffle.
Yeah.
And that's back when coming off the top rope was illegal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was just all kinds of fun stuff with that. Yeah.
So now Mike's like, what?
Yeah, now I don't know. Yeah, now I'm like,
I brought
don't
the
know.
two worlds together.
Yeah. But it worked because I could see the lights going and his like, and then I'm going, what the hell's going on?
And I prefer the older ones. But anyway, fuck, we were in plugs. Get my side project. Gag on
all this can get edited out.
Nah, we'll leave it in.
Okay, no, I like it.
This will be a Nerdfest.
This better not get edited
Every
out.
time
This
I
is
put
like my
nerd-
favorite parts. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're talking.
Every time I put Nerdfest in the title, it was get more downloads.
Oh,
so,
nice.
I think we've had 3 of those. But anyway, but this is a topic that I think should be downloaded anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Gag on this podcast, which you will be on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The
looking at my calendar. 22nd? Am I doing it? No, it's 29th.
29th? Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the 15th. I've got writing up there.
Yeah, I think I don't know, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll hear Damien on Gag on this in
Cool.
a few weeks. And
I'll plug a Geek History of Time and the Capital Punishment on that as well.
You definitely should. We record every Wednesday at 5:30 at Blacktop Comedy Club up in Rockland. Mm-hmm. We have a open... Jesus fucking Christ. Let me start over from scratch.
Sure.
All I know is I really have to pee, and I'm like, please
So
just
do I.
finish it.
I'm wearing my dark pants. I've peed like 4 times. It's fine.
Now I wish I had the diaper from the other, you know.
We record every Wednesday at 5:30 at Blacktop Comedy Club up in Rockland. We interview local comics, have a great time doing it, and there's an open mic right afterwards, and our guests get to be on the first 5, or I think the first one if you want on the open mic.
Oh, nice.
If you're up for it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's new. You
One of
never
the
said that
perks.
before.
We just started that, actually.
That's
I'll take
smart.
the mic time. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And
Especially because everybody runs and signs up, and then you get to be like,
It was kind of annoying because depending on who was running the show, I'm not naming names, but the order wasn't always followed.
Yeah.
Which kind of bugged me. Cause
it's
like, how come that guy went first even though he just walked in and he got 10 minutes? I'm down to 4.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Kind of, I don't know.
That's because you're Hufflepuff, man. We're like fair. That's what it is.
Well, it's because I'm a shitty comedian. That's why.
I was gonna say, do what my partner Daniel says. Daniel Humbarger and Johnny Taylor both say, become undeniable, and then they can't deny you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're at the deniable phase still.
I'm very deniable.
Yep.
But, the Gag on this has a sponsor, Bag of Dicks. There's a link I'll put in the show notes, and if you click that link and put in the code GAGONPODCAST, you get 20% off your order of Bag of Dicks. Send someone a bag of dicks and tell them, eat a bag of dicks.
Love it.
And I will have show notes, links in the show notes about support groups for anyone that lost a child through miscarriage or for, just losing a child in general. I know March of Dimes is one of them on there.
Good.
There's a handful. They will be on there. And, I didn't get into what to do afterwards because, 1, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And 2, it's just the most important thing is that you actually treat it, talk to somebody. You did the right thing by getting through counseling, and I think overall you came out way better off.
I still see a counselor today.
Yeah.
Like that's
wish
next
I could
Friday
afford it.
for me.
Yeah. So, but definitely this isn't something, because I know a lot of dads just take it on themselves.
Yep.
Like, this is just my job. I just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Don't fucking do it.
No.
You're not doing anyone any favors. You're going to be an asshole to your wife and kids if you have both, and just.
It'll find its way out of you.
Yeah.
So you might as well channel it.
I'm learning that.
I used to never cry in front of Olivia,
Mm-hmm.
and it came to the point where she made a point to tell her mom that, and then I had to make myself cry so she
pulling nose hairs.
And then for a while it was like I've seen it one time, and then for some reason I don't know, a year or two ago, something clicked and now I can't stop it. Like any
Right.
movie, I'm a, you know.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah, now
Like
it happens.
Episode 7 of Star Wars, when Kylo Ren kills Han Solo and Han touches him. My kids just look at me because they know I'm crying already.
My kid makes fun of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll see like
Any
will set
dad
me
stuff
off.
will get me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, any dad stuff like Coco, that movie.
Yeah.
All I go. Oh, and it's like,
Well, yeah, Coco,
Kid
because
to see Coco.
the
Oh.
Coco reminded me of my mom.
Oh,
So I'm
see,
like, fuck. You know?
that one got me. God, I'm trying to think. There's so many. We should make a list of that. Of all
Hamilton.
the movies that
Hamilton.
I saw
oh,
recently.
Jesus.
see that. Dang
My,
it.
I would listen to the podcast. My daughter would see me just sobbing in the kitchen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
because I remember I went to see it.
Because he loses his fucking son.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have to tell her that it's because I'm sad. But
And it's his son following his fucked up advice.
Yep.
And that just to me, I'm like, and I understand where he was coming from. And, you know, when he says, just come and see me after.
Yep.
And you're like, oh.
You
Yeah,
had
I
to
was
go to
sobbing
him.
in the fucking
Yeah.
theater and my wife's laughing at me. I mean, she was also, but
Yeah.
See, I haven't seen it yet. I want to see that movie.
I didn't want to go see it because I thought it was overrated and overpriced, which it is overpriced, but it's definitely not overrated.
Yeah.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
I don't feel like any of those ones are overpriced with what they got to do. It's hard. Like I had to wait for the lotteries. I love those
Right.
freaking lotteries. It's the
Sure.
only way for the regular.
Well, the tickets
people
are
to
like
do it.
a couple $100 a piece.
Yeah, and that's kind of
okay.
how they are. Yeah.
I'm like, come on. I mean, fucking, I should at least take home like a hand bone from Hamilton after that. Anyway.
See, I see what they put into it. Like I don't know, and some of it like.
Yeah, but they passed the profit margin a long time ago.
Yes.
They're way
Oh,
profitable
for them.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, you know.
Well, that's why they have the lotteries. Then.
Yeah.
That's why you're able to go
Yeah.
see it if you can get it. But
Anyway, well, thank you, Damien. I know that was not
Yeah.
an easy thing to talk about, but I think
No.
a lot of people will benefit from it.
Well, I'm glad.
yeah, thank you for being on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
So we will talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Bye.
The thing I want to say is thank you all for coming. Bye-bye.